How about that smoke, yo? Sure is looking pretty outside, right? Right? Oh, hell no. Surprisingly though, it doesn't actually smell that bad right now. Surprisingly. I take that back. Now it smells like cigarette smoke. Anyway, so what do we got going on today? Anything? Is there any reason to talk? It's day 2 of our FDA audit. It's actually going fairly smoothly. As smoothly as having the government up your butthole can go. I can't complain too much. Anytime you have a government inspector, you're kind of at their own mercy. Sometimes they're real assholes, and sometimes they're regular people. This guy seems to be pretty regular. He's not walking around with a stick up his butt, feeling like, you know, he's got some kind of, you know, cross to bear and he wants to persecute the witches. I don't know, am I being too biblical with all this? Maybe. But no, he for the most part has accepted the answer. So let me give you an idea of how the FDA works in the industry that I work in. There's a regulation, it's a code of federal regulations that outlines essentially the minimum requirements to produce dietary supplements. They do not tell you how to produce them. They don't tell you any methods or anything like that. What they do is they come in after the fact, after you've already become a facility or whatnot, and then they say whether or not they like your methods. And if they don't like your methods, you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to validate or justify or rationalize your methods. And then from there, they may or may not accept your rationale. And then they'll send you a nice letter saying, we don't like your rationale. Here's a warning. We believe that you're doing harm in the industry, or you pose a medical threat or a health hazard to the greater population. It does take quite a while for something like that to happen. Essentially, the FDA wants to work with you to a point before they go bullying you with a warning letter. Now they can if they want. If they walk in the door and they see like oil dripping into a product or something like that, they can just go ahead and seal the door. And stop you from doing business. So if they see something really egregious like that, you're pretty much done. And we have heard about it. We haven't seen it too often in the industry, that there are those nightmare companies out there that, you know, the FDA stumbles upon. And it's really kind of funny, actually. So the only way the FDA knows that you exist as a company is if you register with them. So you have to actually go and register your facility with the FDA for the FDA to even know you exist. Unless you're marketing on the internet. Let's say you have a website and you're selling, I'm gonna make something up here, let's say Job's penis enlargement pills. So my friend Job here, he makes these penis enlargement pills and he sells them on the internet. And he's really good with marketing. He's got them just on every freaking site out there. If you search penis, you're gonna see an advertisement for Job's penis pills. Now, if they find your website and you're not registered with them, or if your manufacturing facility is not registered with them, you can darn near guarantee you're getting a warning letter. You're gonna get a cease and desist saying that you're an unregistered facility and you need to stop distributing your product immediately or face all kinds of financial penalties. Now some companies, they don't care. Let's say that Job is one of those fly-by-nighters. He's just trying to make his couple mil and get out the business. So he may tempt the fates. So he keeps on producing his penis enlargement pills. Next thing you know, the FDA shows up on your doorstep and says, "Oh, Mr. Job, we see that you're still producing your penis enlargement pills, and we had sent you this order to stop, but you didn't. So we're gonna go ahead and seize all your assets and any of your materials you still have, and we're gonna go through this whole process of ensuring that they were made in the proper manner so that they did not pose a health risk." And you can darn near guarantee that if you weren't registered with the FDA, you weren't making it in the proper manner, so you will lose all your assets that they have seized. And any of the materials you still had on your facility floor. Now luckily, there's not too many businesses out there that operate like that. Luckily. They do exist though. There are the horror stories. For the most part, the dietary supplement industry is a vast array of different types of facilities. You have your mom and pops who are working out of like a tough shed in their backyard, and they're making one product. It's grandma's tooth oil or something like that. And it doesn't matter if they only sell 2 bottles a year of this stuff. They still have to be registered with the FDA, and their facility has to be compliant with all the regulations. All the way up to, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company like, I don't know, there's a couple out there that, I'll use Tom's natural products. You know, he's selling multi-million-dollar amounts every year, and he has to make all the same compliance, or he has to meet all the same compliance regulations as grandma and grandpa tooth oil. So when you get an FDA inspector, sometimes the FDA inspectors are a little green, I'll say. They're newer to auditing dietary supplements, and so they don't really know what they're doing. So they really go through with a fine-tooth comb, and they may focus on things that you just can't understand why they're focusing on them. And then you get the more seasoned veterans who will come through and they'll focus in on one thing, and they focus in on it hard, and near guarantee you they're going to find something in that one thing that they're focusing on. And I actually prefer them because they've generally been around the industry long enough that they've got a good idea of the different types of manufacturing facilities out there and where you fall in it and what they can expect you to do or not to do to be in compliance. With your new guys or new girls, they got to make phone calls constantly. They're calling the main office, in my case in Denver, constantly to get input from the higher ups. And since the higher ups aren't there to physically see the facility or to lay eyes on the paperwork, they're giving guidance based off of what their knowledge is from their field work, which could have been 10, 15, 20 years ago. So again, it could all depend on their higher ups and what they are specialists in. And they may or may not actually be dietary supplement specialists. So it's kind of a luck of the draw thing. Luckily, the guy that we got, he's not brand new to dietary supplements, so he's at least got an idea of what he's doing, but he's definitely not one of the more seasoned investigators. There's things that this guy isn't doing that kind of surprise me, and then there's things that he is doing that I've never seen before. But they all have their own methods, and sadly they all have their own interpretation. So I don't know if you've ever played a rule or a game where the rules are kind of ambiguous. That's how the Code of Federal Regulations is for dietary supplements. The rules are very, very ambiguous. And they have to be, because in the dietary supplement field, there are all kinds of different ways of making different dietary supplements. And I don't want to get too far off into the weeds, but all I can say is, using my analogy of grandma's tooth oil, you may have grandma in the kitchen with some olive oil and some tea tree essential oil, and she's just pouring tea tree essential oil into that olive oil, and that's her product. Super simple and basic. And you might have someone over at Tom's Naturals who's formulating and basically using all kinds of scientific, measurements to get just the right amount of fluoride in something. And then when they mix a batch, they got to test multiple points in the batch to make sure that fluoride is mixed in the right proportion, or else the batch is not blended properly. There's all kinds of different ways of making stuff. And I'm not sure where I was going with all that, other than we got a pretty cool guy doing our investigation. He seems to be going by really quick. Sometimes the investigators, they will show up the moment your door unlocks for business, and they will stay until the moment your door locks. And this guy, he's been showing up at like 10:30, 11:30, taking an hour-long lunch between noon and 1, and then leaving by 2:30, 3 o'clock. So he is not spending hardly any time in the facility, which I'm okay with. So that's the report. I hope this wasn't too boring for you guys, but give you a little insight into what my dealings are at work. My main focus is making sure that the company I work for is staying compliant with the regulations and operating within those guidelines. And when the FDA shows up, I'm kind of a mediator between the FDA and the company. Anyway guys, hope this video wasn't too crazy or disjointed. Kind of feels like it might have gotten there. I will talk at you next time, hopefully with more good news. Catch you then. Bye.